In February, Colorado-based biometrics and vision AI provider ROC closed the first big biometrics IPO of 2026. I'm Joel McConvey, and today on the Biometric Update Podcast, ROC CEO Scott Swann joins me to discuss the company's IPO, the security landscape, and where ROC is headed in a fraught world. We're here to talk today largely about ROC's IPO and about what that means for the company moving forward. So can you maybe start by walking me through the process of what happened with this IPO and what sort of built up to the deal?
Yeah, JR, thanks for having me. I'm Scott Swann. I'm CEO here at ROC. Yeah, the IPO for ROC, it was really a culmination of a long-term and really, I would say, intentional journey for us. You know, we've grown this company organically. We never took any outside capital, and all that was by design. If we would have wanted to take money for the company, we would have went to the private markets. It would have been a lot faster. But we saw the IPO as infrastructure for us. We saw it as a way that we could scale in a really disciplined way. A big part of this was so that we could maintain our culture and our independence. But we wanted to invest in problems that we knew would take some time to solve. And many of those were very specific toward national security around the biometrics and the various other digital evidence and video analytic problems. So, you know, the IPO to us was really the infrastructure that we needed to accelerate and move faster. You know, we were already competing against billion-dollar foreign companies, and we're proving that we could win in that space, but never have taken capital. It does slow some of the ability to meet some of the objectives that you're trying to move. So we now have some capital behind us. We have new shareholders that we're working with, and really looking forward to being able to prove out our vision within the IPO world.
Can you give me a few of the nuts and bolts of the offering? Just the shares, the price, the proceeds. How did it all hash out for everyone?
Yeah, it was. We raised almost a little over $24 million. We came in at the high end of the range, around $6 per share. We had a lot of demand during our roadshow, especially with the institutional investors. I think that our growth story resonated with people as we described what we were trying to achieve. And so, we really just decided that we were going to put this infrastructure in place so that we could grow the company in a very, disciplined way.
So I understand that some of the new funds are going to be used for investment in key personnel to help grow market share. And I know that I've read that airports are of particular interest to ROC. So I'm wondering about areas in which business looks promising and areas in which the company is looking to expand or grow its presence.
Yeah, for sure. Airports is one of the growth areas, but it's not, one of our key targets. I think national security in general, these large scale biometric systems, a lot of people are surprised to hear that the artificial intelligence that we use in the way that we screen people for coming in this country, it's almost 100% powered by foreign technology. And we want to use these funds to help position the United States to be the dominant leader in biometric and identity technology. So a lot of this will be going toward all the various large-scale federal screening processes, the state and local law enforcement. There are about 19,000 criminal justice agencies that need these kind of capabilities. We'll be using these proceeds to make sure we scale out our ABIS capabilities and being able to provide the right solutions to those state and local partners. And then in the video analytics space, video is ubiquitous these days. You see cameras everywhere you go. In fact, used to have a boss that would joke that, people didn't believe something happened unless they could watch it on video. And so there is a lot of opportunity in the commercial security space also to be able to grow and be able to apply the right resources to put that scaling effect in place.
I want to ask at this point, because it is sort of a key piece of ROC's identity. You've been very forward about being a U.S. company, and it sounds as though you're looking at a landscape that's sort of challenged by some foreign companies I'm wondering how much of it an advantage is it now at this point in time for ROC to come and say we are kind of an all-American firm?
Yeah, I think the timing is right now. I think people understand supply chain more now than they ever had. And as we think about artificial intelligence, I think we've seen examples where bias can be built into these models. So you have to have a lot of trust in the entity that builds these models out for you. And so, for us understanding kind of like the whole geopolitical environment today and being able to really be at the forefront of putting the United States as a leader in this position, something we're completely committed to doing.
Do you feel that you have competitors in this space? I mean, ROC has been one of the big names, sort of, establishing itself as a U.S. firm in biometrics for a long time. How do you survey the kind of market in terms of competition in the States?
Yeah, I mean, in some respects, it's a bit of a David versus Goliath type of success story here that we're working toward. We look at these, multi-billion-dollar foreign companies, but we have been able to go head to head with them through various benchmarks and third-party testing. One of the most known third-party testing is the National Institute of Standards Technology, NIST. They do biometric benchmarks. And the ability for a smaller company like ROC to go head to head with these companies and show not only that we can beat them in accuracy, but the efficiency. I mean, we will save our customers millions of dollars with the amount of compute resources that they'll have to use to deploy these technologies. As you look across the entire competitive landscape, there's not a lot of players in that actually build the algorithms here, and certainly not in the United States. We kind of stand a bit on an island when it comes to United States, artificial intelligence operators that build biometric capabilities. But across the globe, we see a bit of fragmentation. We see companies that have been, owned by private equity that our priorities seem to be shifting in other places. We see customer service that has been neglected. We pride ourselves in our representation to our customers and making sure that we're able to, really stand behind the products, and the integrity to us as a company stretches long more than just the product itself. We want to make sure that we are there supporting the mission and making sure that whatever solutions and services that we deliver is really all toward a customer success.
You mentioned NIST. I wonder how important are those benchmarks to your business in terms of being able to point to some reference and say, look, this is vetted?
Yeah, NIST is really looked across the entire world as that de facto standard of how well. It's a starting place for agencies to look to see, who is the best in this industry. And, it's not necessarily perfect. A lot of entities decide to do their own bake-offs and benchmarks, and we always welcome that when they do. But I think NIST really provides that first layer of capability to say, this is the top tier companies. And it's important when you think about things in face recognition like bias. You can go to the NIST website and you can draw a line essentially and say, you don't see bias when you look at these companies that are above this particular threshold. They've kind of overcome it. You go below those thresholds and there could be some problems in that space. So I'm very complimentary of the NIST practice. I think that they have done a phenomenal job. It's a service to not just the government, it's a service to the commercial sector as well, to be able to take on that labor, that expense of being able to put those benchmarks out so everyone can help support their acquisition decisions based off of that.
Just to pivot for a minute, I want to talk about convergence. You've sort of suggested that ROC is moving towards a more unified platform model rather than sort of assembling individual software components. What's driving that decision?
Yeah, I think this is going to be a big part of the future for how the government consumes some of these systems. As you think about what they've deployed in the past, you have, different entities that are responsible for video analytics systems, different entities that are responsible for biometric systems, different entities that are responsible for digital evidence. But there is commonality between all those, which is identity. And that ability to thread that together and show, common identity. I mean, who gets into a car or who, commits this crime in video, who holds a gun, it's a person. To be able to show that, I've confiscated this cell phone or hard drive from, a known terrorist or a bad actor, and being able to tie that identity all back together. I think getting away from those silos and being able to show that all can be done in a unified platform is extremely, extremely powerful. And typically it is difficult, just based by design, for government agencies to be able to create that middleware to make all of this come together. We try to work with them to make this easier so that we understand their mission. Not only are we technologists here that can build great technology, we have extensive domain experience. We have lived these missions that our customers have lived. We've been at the forefront of almost every major crisis, to include and since September 11th. So we understand the kind of challenges that they face. We combine that legacy domain knowledge with our ability to build top tier algorithms and build products. I think a unified platform is really going to be the future of this industry and being able to really scale and meet those customer challenges.
And so who's asking for this stuff? What's kind of driving the market success for ROC at the moment?
Yeah, there's in some respects, we've had the need for this stuff for many, many years. We're not getting away from background checks and screening people, whether that be to come into this country, to support employment, or for a variety of other needs. And, so we've had legacy capabilities that will just, stay with us. We're always going to be supporting investigations. And as mentioned, 19,000 criminal justice agencies. But it's bigger than just the United States. In the global space, you go to some other countries, you can't go 50 feet without seeing security cameras. And in some respects, they're a bit ahead of, I think, where the United States may be with being able to tie that information together with, video, digital evidence, as well as their biometric and identity systems. So I think that we're seeing kind of this, where other countries are headed, where the United States needs to head, working very closely with those partners, understanding what they're asking for, what their overall missions are, and trying to show them what the state of the possible is as well.
The United States is unique. It's its own thing. There's nothing else like it. And I wonder, in sort of providing these services for agencies in the States, how transferable is it to international markets? Like how easy is it for you to take a product to the UK, say, and say, this is, what we've got, given that it sort of targets US security services at the kind of core level?
Yeah, it's a great question. As you think about, even as you look domestically here, anybody that has a true security mission has a need for some of these products, whether that's a commercial entity that's trying to protect a shopping mall or an airport, or obviously these government customers. And so that security mission obviously transcends across borders and across the globe. And there are in some respects, working closely with allied countries to make sure that we're supporting their needs. Obviously, we won't work with customers that are not, in good graces with the United States. But those countries that have traditionally partnered with the United States and have been long-term allies of the United States, I think their security challenges are very similar to the ones that we see here in the United States, and we look forward to help supporting them in their missions as well.
So post-IPO, what does the trajectory look like? Where is ROC going to end up in, say, 3 years?
Yeah, that's a great question too. As we think about last year, what we achieved, we had always sold components. and moving to a Vision AI platform, we were able to get our first real product out, and we saw some good monetization of that, along with just being able to better meet the customer requirements and mission with that space. As we come into 2026, we're essentially bringing 4 additional products to market under this Vision AI platform. And we should be able to monetize each of those, as well as meet objectives for our government customers and commercial customers in this space. So we see 2026 as a year that we will get a lot of our beachhead reference customers in place. We obviously are looking forward to getting larger multi-year contracts with good annual recurring revenue in place as well. And then as we look out into 2027, ability to take this investment. Of course, we're investing now as part of the IPO, making sure that we return to a profitable state in next year. And then, sky's the limit, honestly. As you think about who we're competing against, these billion-dollar companies, we don't have to capture all the market share to really have meaningful results for ROC. So, I see no direction that we can go but growth, and it's fun being a part of a growth company.
Excellent. Well, the future is bright. And I will paraphrase AC/DC and say, for those about to rock, we salute you.
Thank you, JR.
Thanks again to Scott Swann for taking the time to join me today. And thanks to you for listening. For all the latest on deals, partnerships, and finances in the biometrics and digital ID industry, be sure to visit www.biometricupdate.com.